Hey folks, welcome to episode 6 of Forever. Today I'm going to be talking about my first impressions of the Valve Index, the difference between playing in 90 Hz, 120 Hz, and 144 Hz modes, if there is one, the packaging that the device came in, comfort options, some of the different accessories and features of the headset, the stereo pass-through mode, playing through some experiences using the headset, and also my first experience using the Index Knuckles controllers, potential customization options for future accessories, and a short critique of something that actually did bother me while wearing the headset. First off, I just really need to thank GiantSox, a developer on the Live team, who let me visit his office in San Francisco today and actually take up 35 to 45 minutes of his time on his first day owning a Valve Index. I literally got to watch him unbox the headset and try it out for the first time for himself just before I got to try it. And I got to try his DV Knuckles as well. So they were the design validation samples from Valve and not the full retail package of the Valve Index controllers. But they have the same functionality and they work just as well, I'm sure, in my brief play testing. GiantSox also let me borrow his design validation sample knuckles, so I'll actually be able to use them for the next week or so in experiences using, unfortunately, an older Steam VR headset that I have because I do not yet own a Valve Index of my own. However, I got to spend some good quality time experimenting with the headset in his office, and the first thing I want to say is before using the Valve Index, I've used headsets anywhere from 60 Hz to 90 Hz. Gear VR was at 60 Hz. I have also played with the Go and the Quest at 72 Hz. I've played with the Rift S at 80 Hz. I've played with the DK2 Oculus headset at 75 Hz. I've played with the Vive at 90 Hz. I've played with the Pimax headsets somewhere around 80 to 85 Hz. And I honestly didn't really notice that much of a difference between those different refresh rates. Switching from 90 Hz to 120 Hz to 144 Hz, I could absolutely tell the jump between 90 to 120 and from 120 to 144. One caveat I do want to say, though, is it's super smooth. At least it ran smooth on the computer that we used today, which was an MSI GS65 laptop running a NVIDIA GTX 2060. But switching to 144 Hz and possibly also 120 Hz, we didn't go back and retest this, does auto-enable motion smoothing, and it downscales the super sampling. So you absolutely can go back in and adjust to 100% or higher super sampling, whatever you prefer, and you can turn off motion smoothing. But it does automatically make those adjustments when you switch to the experimental 144 Hz and also possibly at the 120 Hz. So just make note of that if you do get an Index for yourself or if you're trying an Index, because you may want to go back and readjust those positions in the software. The 90 Hz works just as well as any other headset, but the 120 Hz and 144 Hz feels smoother. Like, I can't say it was more immersive, but I can say it feels like running a game on a higher refresh rate monitor that's specialized and really tuned to those games. This was especially prevalent in Thumper. We played a little bit of Thumper. GiantSox actually controlled the keyboard because we didn't have a controller, and I just watched the visuals in the headset, and absolutely it felt like a much more fluid experience playing through that game at the 144 hertz refresh rate. The visuals in the headset, the screen resolution is definitely better than the old Vive, probably slightly incrementally more than the Vive Pro. The FOV, I can't say it wasn't mind-blowing, but it was absolutely very comfortable. With the eye relief out, because I do wear glasses, I didn't really notice any edges of the screen. And the lenses kind of cup your eyes. One of the things we also did as an experiment, we did lots of experimentation in this first couple hours with the headset, was we took the facial interface off of the headset. And taking off that facial interface, we tried putting the headset on without it. I did not wear my glasses for those experiments, but I can say that is extremely uncomfortable. Yes, it puts your eyes closer to the lenses, but it literally presses your pupil against the lens, so you really can't even blink your eyes anymore at that point. And it also pushes your nose and your sinuses really flush into the lenses and the little nose gasket. So I feel like Valve definitely purposefully made a comfortable and logical design decision with their facial interface. I will also say, though, that the facial interface on the headset is easily removable. It's got magnetic attachment to the headset itself, so you can easily swap out those facial interfaces. They actually sell them on Steam for $40. So if you're running an exhibition or doing a competition with multiple people, or you just want one for each person in your household, they're definitely available at this time. I suspect people like VR Cover and other enterprising folks will come out with new replacement facial interfaces as well for the Index. There's also on the back of the head strap a very comfortable pad, and there's inside the box also a separate pad that you can actually fit into that facial pad. I suspect it's for people with smaller head shapes and head sizes. So I feel like Valve made a lot of intelligent design decisions for comfort with this headset. And I have to say, right now, it's still kind of a toss-up between the Index and the Rift S for me as far as comfort, but I do feel like this is an extremely comfortable headset. I do feel, though, that the controllers, again, first time using them, I may have had them too tight, I may have had them too loose, but those take a little bit to get used to. It is very different than holding a touch controller or holding a Vive wand to hold on to the Valve Index controllers. The packaging, as you can see on the screen here, opens up to a message of hello worlds. I think that's super fitting for something that's a VR headset. You're going to be entering into a bunch of virtual worlds with this headset, and that's a good first message. Valve absolutely intends that to be the first message that you see when you open the box. I can tell you that because it's in a little box with the instruction manuals inside, but it's affixed to the center of the box with Velcro tabs. So it is there, and it is not going anywhere in shipment, which is really a cool message to see. The head strap adjusts very easily. It's also got the crank at the back of a sort of Halo design. I feel like this particular headset and the Rift S both have good Halo designs as far as the structure of the headset, but the Index absolutely wins out on audio. The headphones, head speakers, I guess, because they don't actually cup into your ears, work very, very well. They definitely have bass levels, which a lot of the other headphones for other competing headsets do not have, and they can get quite loud. They were kind of cranked up all the way when we started setting up the Steam VR application. And you could absolutely hear the sounds very, very loud until some adjustments were made to make the volume a little bit lower. What I can say is if you're listening at a reasonable volume in the headset, if there's other people in the room, they can barely or not hear the sound from the head speakers. So it doesn't bleed out in ways that the downward firing speakers in the new Oculus headsets do, or the Vive Focus, for example. But the speakers are very clear, hanging just off of your ears. They are adjustable. You can adjust them up, down, back and forth, so that they're more isolating over your ears. Trying to have a conversation in the room, you could barely hear each other in the conversation. It really does try to isolate your sound to the experience that you're having in the headset. Of course, if you want to have a conversation in the room, you could easily just turn up that head speaker away from your ear, and it would be no problem at all. The next thing I want to talk about very briefly is the stereo pass-through mode. It does have the Tron modes similar to the Vive and Vive Pro, but there's also color stereo pass-through, which there's two modes. One's kind of like a opaque mode where you can see the experience in Steam as well as the world around you. The experience that GiantSox actually did in that mode was he had just Steam VR Home open, but he could see the room in the real world kind of in the background, and it kind of blended together, which was kind of cool. And then the other mode is true color stereo pass-through, and to me it felt almost like looking into a funhouse mirror. Things were just slightly stretched and abnormal, but real world objects, I went and grabbed a water bottle off of the ground, and it was where I expected it to be. I didn't have to like reach a little bit further forward or a little bit further back for it. And you do see that stereo depth. So I feel like that application alone is something that is very practical, and with fine-tuning and better software revisions could lead to something that could be really good for helping those who have vision impairment. I myself can't see 3D and 3D films and things of that nature. Outside of an HMD, I never knew what the big deal about the 3D scenes in Avatar were, for an example. And there's a lot of people that have vision impairment that this could help with. You do get almost a full field of view of the headset through that stereo pass-through. This could also potentially be used for potentially some type of augmented reality applications in the future. I feel like that feature is something that wasn't sold for this. This headset's not being sold as a, hey, check out this stereo pass-through, but it could lead to something in the future that's really practical and really cool and could benefit people, like I said, with vision impairment or other health issues. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be this device, but the tech is there, and you can actually see it demonstrated in a pretty well-developed form even this early on in the device's cycle. I did play through a few experiences. In addition to Thumper, I played Aperture Hand Labs as my first experience with the Index. I played through Aperture Hand Labs last night just using a Vive Pre with my Vive wands, and I got to a portion about a minute and a half before the end of the game and couldn't continue because I couldn't squeeze the controller in a way that would let me pass and move on to the next section. But I will say this, Aperture Hand Labs, just like Aperture Robot Repair, is a short experience that is impressive for demonstrating this particular headset and these particular controllers. Really, the controllers more so than anything else, of course, because it's designed to show those finger tracking and squeeze gestures. But it didn't feel like it was that different from using the Vive Wand or the Oculus Touch outside of a couple of actions. So until a lot more software comes out that takes advantage of that finger tracking, I don't know necessarily that the Index controllers are as critical for me as an individual consumer as the headset itself. The headset is something I'm absolutely sold on after using it. The comfort of the headset, like I said, rivals or maybe incrementally better than the Rift S. The visuals using 120 hertz mode and 144 hertz mode, the smoothness and the crispness of those images, it felt like something that shouldn't work and was definitely different than what I experienced at 90 hertz or lower. And I don't know why that is. I fully expected this to just be something that worked maybe marginally better than other headsets, and I was really impressed with those features. There's definitely the ability to customize this headset in the future for developers and tinkerers. You can remove the front faceplate, and it exposes a feature that they're calling the frunk, kind of nicknamed after the front trunks of some vehicles. Tesla calls it a frunk, for example, for their electric cars. And you can actually use that as an accessory port. When you take that front cover off, it exposes kind of the venting of the front of the headset. I likely, when I get an Index, will take off that front cover whenever I'm using the headset, because I did feel like there was a bit of heat. That's my one real criticism. It's not really a concern, but if it's extremely hot temperature outside, for example, or inside, if you don't have the right air conditioning or circulation, and you're playing active games, having a lot of heat in the front of your face is just going to make you even hotter. Could add to sweat, could add to body heat, could add to overheating. So having a way to keep that vented and cooler, I think is definitely the best way for me to go. I'm not saying everyone's going to need that. A lot of people have central air conditioning, for example, or don't live in climates that get that warm. But taking off that front cover exposes the venting. You can actually look into it and see a little bit of the different colored LEDs and mechanisms inside through the vents, which is kind of cool. I think every bit of this thing is removable, and you can substitute other parts potentially in the future. Obviously, brand new headset, didn't want to do that today. Also not my headset. So I'm sure that you'll see teardowns and tinkering from multiple people in the near future. I'm just excited that they left those options in there for this headset. Overall, I was very impressed with the build quality of the headset and the comfort of the headset. The controllers, the experience I feel like I felt best in was Job Simulator, which just today, I believe, added finger tracking officially in their application. And it's funny because Job Simulator is essentially where I started with the Vive Pre. The 5-minute office demo was what I played back then. I spent about 5 minutes in the office module of Job Simulator today, except now I had the ability to use my hands with full finger tracking. And I felt like that was kind of my wow moment in Job Simulator today. I really liked the ability to not have to worry about holding or releasing my hands. The gestures, like I said, in the experiences that I played today, didn't really mean all that much to me. They will in the future as more applications are developed to take advantage of those hand gestures and squeezing, and I feel like the Index controllers will eventually probably be critical for some games. But as of today, it's really just, it's very similar to existing control scheme, especially with the Oculus Touch. There are a couple of other finger movements that you can do, and of course the squeezing movement that you can't do with the Touch. But otherwise, I didn't really feel like, hey, got to get those Index controllers. Now, mind you, I've used them for maybe 40 minutes. I have another week to use them before I give them back to the developer that's letting me borrow them. By that time, it's very possible that I may change my opinion. These may become the thing that I'm just like, yeah, most excited about those. But for me, the headset is what I'm most excited about, and I'm very thankful that I have a July reservation date. I intentionally didn't go for purchasing for first day shipment because I wasn't sure if this was a headset that I really wanted to own. Having tried it, definitely going for it. Is it worlds better than the Rift S or the Quest? Not really. But it does have those incremental differences. The quality of the sound. I did not use the microphone, but I've heard from others that the microphone is the best microphone that they've used in headsets. The controllers give a little bit more difference than other headsets. And I feel like to this day, Lighthouse tracking is still the best. Is it a lot better than the Rift S? No. The Rift S, especially today even, is still getting patches that improves their inside-out insight tracking. So if you don't have $1,000 to buy a Valve Index with the controllers, with the Lighthouses, absolutely the Rift S is a great headset at $399. All in one package, comes with the controllers and the insight tracking. If you already have a Vive or a Vive Pro or a Pimax headset, and you've got base stations, and you've got Vive wands for that matter, being able to experience the 120 hertz and 144 hertz modes, being able to play with that pass-through mode if you're a developer or a tinkerer, being able to kind of take pieces apart and potentially add new accessories or new features, and especially being able to listen to that crisp audio makes a big difference. And at a $500 headset only price point, I think it's definitely worth it for those factors alone. If you are a content creator, having a microphone that picks up your voice well is critical. And using OpenVR capture in OBS is very easy to configure. So as a content creator, this is probably a headset that I'm going to use a lot in the future. Is that going to keep me from ever using the Rift or the Rift S in the future? Absolutely not. Is it going to keep me from using the Quest, which is really the Game Boy of this era? Absolutely not. There's going to be use cases and differences in those headsets for me personally all of the time. Do I feel like this is a good first VR headset? If you want cutting edge, top of the line quality that you know is going to be outdated probably within 6 months with something new, I feel like the Valve Index, at least as of today, is the best of the first wave of headsets that have come out since the Vive and the Rift came out. And it is an extremely comfortable headset, has Lighthouse tracking, has finger controls and motion and gesture recognition that aren't there with other controllers today at the same level, but do exist on both the touch controllers and to a limited extent on the Vive wands. As a VR enthusiast, this is a headset that I'm absolutely going to pick up, and I'm excited to get at the end of July, hopefully, as long as the timelines that Valve promised on day one still exist. And I'm excited to spend the next week or so experimenting with the Valve Index Knuckles controllers as well. I've got a lot of experiences I'm going to be trying. I'm going to try out the new Ski Jump application by VR Unicorns. I'm going to try out Peerhead Arcade 2 by Mechabit. I'm going to play a little bit more with Job Simulator with the finger tracking. I'm going to play Aperture Hand Labs again in my home using a Vive, of course, instead of an Index for right now. I'm going to play a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm actually going to try the uh, original demo that was developed internally by Valve as well, the Moondust demo, which I never tried, but I've had in my library since the original Moondust 1.0 came out. I just didn't have the controllers for it and didn't really want to fuss with the bindings for other controllers to work. This is definitely a surprise to me. I expected it to be incrementally different from the other headsets that I've tried in the past, and I was very impressed with all of the design considerations that Valve put into the Index. I don't know why, though, because Valve has always made quality products. Their reference design is what's led to a lot of the headsets that have come out on the market. If you have questions, I may not be the best person to answer them related to the Valve Index because I only got to use one for a limited time, but feel free to add to my comments, and if I can't answer it, I can reach out to many others that have Index in their hands today. I'd like to congratulate Valve for releasing a top-notch quality product with quality packaging and a good first impression device. And I think this is something that's going to lead to not only future developments for the Index, but also carry forward into the future of further iterations in the industry. Once again, thank you to GiantSox from Live for allowing me the opportunity to check out the Valve Index for the first time today and giving up some of his evening to allow that to happen. And, first day with a headset and already letting other people try it. That's pretty awesome. You should check out some of his work and also the 1.0 version of Live on the Steam storefront. It is a application that is used to blend in mixed reality, whether you have a green screen or chroma free with the Kinect for Xbox One connected to your PC. Either of those options are impressive. If you have neither of those, you can also use avatars. It currently works with the Beat Saber avatars, but they're going to add other avatar support as well. So you can actually drop your Beat Saber avatar into hundreds of games that support the Live platform. Totally cool software. Glad to know one of the developers behind that software. We actually met in an Unspoken tournament for the Oculus Rift a couple of years back, and he took me out of the running in that tournament because he's a much, much better esports style gamer than I will ever be in VR. I made a lot of good friends out of that particular experience and more. I hope this babbly Valve Index First Impressions video provided some value to you. I'll be back with more content soon. Until next time, remember, VR isn't dead. It certainly isn't after the year we've had so far.